Hello and welcome to another episode of Property-Pxrn Stars, the premium property podcast brought to you by your hosts David Lindley.
And I'm Matt Giggs.
And today our guest, our long overdue star, I think on the podcast, is none other than Mark Burgess, the CEO of Iceberg Digital and all of the companies underneath that as well. So Mark, we're delighted to have you on at long last.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot to talk about today with you. But let's start with your story, I suppose, into where you are today running Iceberg Digital and how that came to be, how you came to the industry in the first place.
Okay, the long story or the short version, or
whatever you think.
Short, because I've heard it.
Everyone's heard it a million times. So, I mean, I grew up in East London, lived in the sort of poorest part of East London. Left school with no qualifications. Have had several addiction problems over my life, was addicted to drugs for many years. And I sort of fell into a estate agency, again, worked in the poorest boroughs of East London. It was either a estate agency or, working in a kebab shop or something. They were the two options for me. So estate agency seemed like a great option. And I loved estate agency, thought it was brilliant, really enjoyed it. It was the first thing, I think, in my life whereby I sort of latched onto it and was just all in, because I'd been at school and wasn't that interested, and the estate agency just fired me up. It was a time whereby a lot of the properties I was selling, people were buying cheap stuff, refurbishing it, selling it for more money, and it was my first experience of like, wow, you can just invent money, you can just make it, like you don't have to have a job. So from there I learned to be a mortgage advisor on how to get mortgages, and bought lots of properties. And eventually I started my own businesses. So I started an IT recruitment company. I had a publishing company, but all my businesses were really just designed to make a bit of money. That was the kind of goal of them. I started it and we'd try to sell some stuff, and then we'd try to sell a bit more stuff, and that was the only real goals with it. And I started Iceberg in 2009, just after the economic crash, 2007-8 time.
Can I just go back a sec? Sorry, You said something there. You said all the businesses that you made were to make money.
Yeah.
But
as opposed to what, you mean?
Yeah. Go on,
well, I'll come on to it.
All right, okay.
So 2007-8, I pretty much lost everything in that crash. We had a lot of money invested in off-plan properties and that sort of stuff, so pretty much lost everything. Started Iceberg with the last sort of 20 grand that we had, and it was a business that made online magazines for estate agents. It sounds pretty basic now, but it was pretty cutting edge at the time.
When you say online magazines, do you mean actual magazines that were online, or an online way of making printed magazines?
Either.
Okay.
So it started as you can have your magazines just digitally,
yeah,
which wasn't really a thing at the time. The iPhone had only come out a couple of years before that, and you could send it to print.
Yeah.
And it'd all get done in like a few seconds. And that business was good, but again, it was based the same as the others, whereby like we've got targets every month. We're just trying to expand that way. And then in the early to mid sort of 2010s, that teens bit, I started to look more into how the world of data was evolving, how big data was working, and how all of that side of the world was emerging. And I, at the same time, kind of accidentally fell into a group of entrepreneurs that had all built £100 million businesses. Started with a school that I sent my boy to, and I met a parent there who had this phenomenal business, and another one, and met other people. And they sort of made me realise like everything I'd been doing was not pointless, but no one had actually taught me the rules of the game of building a business. Basically, you just do these kind of 7 or 8 things and you sell the company for 100 million quid. And it was like,
simple.
Well, what have I been doing for the last 10 years? But again, just something that I didn't know. So then I sort of immersed myself in that world of self-development and how I do that. And since then, we revamped Iceberg and the way it works. We became more of a technology business based around CRM and marketing and the data and that side of the world. And now AI, obviously. I've written 2 best-selling books around data and marketing. We built 7-figure businesses, went on and built 8-figure businesses. I've had a TV show, been featured on Forbes, all sorts of crazy stuff that, just was never that likely when you rewind all the way back to kebab shop or estate agency. And yes, roller coaster journey.
Yeah. Okay. So there's like a few bits that I want to kind of dive into there. So just going back to Iceberg as a business then, because when I first heard about Iceberg, it's probably like the mid 2010s, so like 2015, something like that. And in my head, it was always, I didn't really know what it was, but it was always about magazines. And the business, and I know everyone does it a little bit tongue in cheek, but there's a Lifecycle WhatsApp group. And if someone mentions in there, oh, don't tell Mark, but I want to do some leaflets.
Yeah.
It's kind of that Mark's the anti-print guy. And it must have been, I know that magazines were digital and printed, but it must have been quite a cultural headspace shift for you and everyone in the business to transfer Iceberg from being a magazine-focused business to now, which is it is a tech business, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as I say, the first iterations of Iceberg were to create digital magazines to avoid the cost of print.
Yeah.
At the time, most agents weren't doing a magazine because it was out of reach financially for them. Companies like Foxtons were doing magazines, but they were spending hundreds of thousands of pounds doing it.
Area or something like that,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
that's right. And so I sort of thought, well, the only reason anyone really does a magazine is to win listings. It looks great. It doesn't really serve that much of a purpose. So I could make you a magazine that looks great with David Beckham on the front cover, and it would take you no effort whatsoever. And I could send it to your database, and you'd be able to say, we do a magazine.
Yeah.
Well, it's got David Beckham on the front cover, and it goes out to 10,000 people a month.
Yeah.
And I could solve that problem straight away. Yeah. So it started digital.
Yeah. Okay.
And then it became, what if we wanted to print it? It's like, yeah, you can send it to print if you want. Yeah. I'm not actually anti-leaflets or post. I just don't think it's a great return on investment. If you've got a limited budget. If you've got an unlimited budget, you may as well do everything. It's not that it doesn't work. It's just, for the money that it costs, it's quite difficult to justify. As opposed to digital, because if you look at, let's look at the most basic version of prospecting, sending letters to people. It's going to cost you somewhere around £1 a letter. And I think Chris Watkins shared a stat recently that 96% of all the properties that sold last year were sold by the first agent. So that leaves you 4% of the market, and it's pretty expensive to do. It's not that it doesn't work. I just think that in a estate agency, a lot of people get confused about what is it working? Is it getting a listing, or is it getting an actual completion? Yeah, what's the success box? Because the stats say that it gets 4% of the market is going to sell with the first agent. So yes, you might get a listing and you might celebrate and go, it works. Yeah. But actually, statistically, it's, obviously everybody's got different, some people it's brilliant for, but therefore it must not work at all for it to equal out like that. So I'm not against any of it. I just think that most agents I talk to are in the small business bracket and they don't have an endless budget. So if you want to reach a lot of people and influence them in some way and have touch points, then letters would be lower down on my list, unless you urgently need a listing of some sort just to get a board up to date.
Yeah. Is that where the problem is? Not the problem. Is that one of the challenges? Because estate agents do hand to mouth, majority of certainly small businesses.
Yeah.
So they don't. How many look at 3 years, 5 years down the line versus 3 months down the line?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a time preference thing. It's if you've got to pay a bill today and it's £100 and you need it, then £100 is really important to you today, and you're happy to maybe give me £150 in a few months' time. If £100 isn't important to me today, I'd rather have the £150 in a few months' time. So our time preferences are different. It doesn't make either of us wrong or right. It's just it's good for you and it's good for me. Everybody wins. And I guess if you've got a low time preference, then you need to find some low-hanging fruit right now. Running a Google ad isn't a particularly great solution for you. You're going to have to go out there and find a listing today, or you're not going to have time to run the Google ad. But a few years down the line, when you've kind of got over that problem, and yes, you would still like to make more money, but the business is reasonably established, then you kind of need to be looking at something that's got a longer time preference, don't you? A bit like when you grow up, you suddenly start thinking about your pension and your ISAs and stuff. But when you're young, you just need to put some petrol in the car, you know? So I think everybody goes through different stages with it in their business, don't they?
I was going to ask you, Matt, in your businesses, what in terms of the marketing, advertising, promotion that you do between digital and print, what's the ratio look like there?
We do very little print, if I'm honest. We were in the newspaper for 13 years ago when we started, and we'd done the classic, you know, let's take more pages than everybody else. And that was what I was conditioned to do when I was about 3 years in. I just said, no, we're not doing this. Because we monitored for 3 years where the leads come from. And actually, it was quite easy to overcome that on the front line. Then we never sent leaflets out. We never sent direct mail out for 7 or 8 years. We just done my dad. He was my leaflet dropper for that first 7 or 8 years, so I knew they were going to get delivered. Because imagine your dad not delivering the leaflets.
Yeah, you stumped them in the bin and got
and
to the
I used
pub,
to
man.
say to him, I'll pay him commission, and I did. I paid him commission if someone come from a leaflet and stuff like that. So we've put a bit more into that sort of side of things, because obviously he was working 4 hours a day, so a fair amount went into that. Nothing significant. But it was only really in the last, I think when our journey into the sort of digital world fully committed was when we signed up 3 years ago to Live Cycle.
Yeah.
The reason we did it, and it's not for everyone, is the vision was, how do customers get what they need from us? Mm-hmm. And is that a better way for customers to receive actual properties that are specific to what they're asking for? And if they're on a particular journey, what information can they read, look at, and how do we know they're looking at the properties? And it all made kind of sense, because in a estate agency corporate where I was before, and certainly to a degree in the element of building a business, you always want you guys to be on the phone, but who do you ring? You know, how do you know where to start? So this system kind of cleared it up for us. So actually, these people have opened it 4 times. We'll ring them then, you know. So there was those kind of fundamental reasons. So that was our shift. But what we spend now, very little on print, very little. I don't think we spent much at all on print. At all.
Do you get customers in Life Cycle that tell you that they've changed their way they market themselves? So they come to you and say, oh, we used to spend XYZ on print and now we don't? Or is it pretty consistent? Do they add Life Cycle to their marketing mix, if you like?
We do get customers that do that, but as you say, I think that then translates into people saying, I know Mark, you know, doesn't believe in print and blah. Honestly, it's not that I don't believe in it. It's just, like I say, it's just you've only got a certain budget.
Yeah.
And it's as a company, from my point of view, if I just wanted to make a bit of money, I think it would be quite an easy sell for me to go around to estate agents saying you should send letters to people that are on the market, because there's that whole fear of missing out. It seems an obvious thing to do, doesn't it? Like, why go hunting for the next listing that I don't know about when there are like 20 sitting on the market with another agent that I could just send them a letter? But it just doesn't work that well, and it's very expensive to do. Yeah. So it's actually, without wanting to sound patronising, I've been through it myself. It's just a lack of education on how people come to decisions on why they buy certain products and services. Yeah. They don't just do it on a whim. Actually, now they spend a lot of time in the digital world doing their own research, and they make the buying decision. Yes. Before you even know about them. Yeah. And so it would be probably better for you if you invested in getting them to make the decision for you to be the first agent, rather than like hounding them after. Yeah. I'm sure it was in, you correct me if I'm wrong here, I'm sure it was in an Estate Agency X event that you did once, where one of the speakers, it might have been Daniel Priestley, but it was quite a while ago, he said, put your hand up if you're stalking a product right now. And everyone put their hand up. I put my hand up. I can't remember what it was, but certainly I'm guilty of that. And you do stalk a product. Yes. You watch reviews on YouTube. You check out the reviews on their website or Trustpilot. You look at their website. You do all that stuff. There'll be people listening to this podcast that are considering taking a by design license. Yeah. There might be somebody listening to this podcast that saw I was a guest and is considering working with Life Cycle. There might be people that are thinking about doing something with Matt. They might just be, I don't know, looking for a bit more information on something else that they're stalking. Yeah. But it's not even necessarily a product, you know, it's anything. Yeah. Like it's like we've reached a point in our lives whereby even if I say to you, I don't know, some sort of interesting fact, like it could be about anything, like, oh, I'm gonna go to this restaurant, it's really nice. You just jump on your phone and have a look, and then before you know it, like, you know, you're in this wormhole of what other nice restaurants are there in London, and all of a sudden, like, these restaurants don't even know that you're a potential customer.
Yeah.
But it would be a bit crazy. I mean, not impossible, but it'd be a bit crazy for them to wait for you to become a customer of another restaurant and then send you a letter asking if you wanted to try their restaurant.
I think
it would be a very expensive way of doing it.
Yeah, it would be. You've sat down to eat over here.
Yeah.
I'm sure, maybe you guys have heard this, but I heard a stat, and this is going back a few years, and I think it's where a lot of this came from. That it was like 60% of properties sell with a second agent. I just had that I heard it so many times, and some people said it to me as well. Yeah. I always thought to myself, that seems quite high. That seems like a lot of people who have swapped agents.
I'm sure I saw something similar as well. And look, I mean, you know,
But I'm kind of glad that Chris Watkin came out and said that, because it kind of puts it to bed a bit.
It was a 20 EA stat, I think, that he was quoting, and they said it to me as well. They said, like, only, I think what they said is like 7% of all the properties sold with the second agent. Mm. But then when you look at the stats of how many properties actually went on the market, like 40% of them didn't sell at all.
Yeah.
So if you took that number, then it drops down to like 4% sold with the second agent. And look, stats, they could be right, they could be wrong. Who cares? I'm sure there's someone listening going, that's just complete rubbish. But the point that I'm trying to make, which I don't care that much about, to be honest, is it's just an expensive way of doing it. And your whole strategy is based on the first one messing it up. If the first one doesn't mess it up, you don't even get a look in.
Yeah.
So it's probably better to invest the money or some money in trying to be the first one.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's how many businesses open with the view of being closed within a year? There are not many, are there?
No. Exactly.
So it is a long game.
Yeah, if you can afford it. Like I say, I don't think there's anything wrong. I think even if the three of us sat down and said we're going to start an estate agency tomorrow, which might have happened at some point, like you got to get your hands dirty in the beginning.
Yeah.
You just need some presence, don't you? You just need some awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can run some ads, but like that's probably not going to lead to a listing tomorrow. And then gradually, as it matures, like I say, I do think it's very much like your people's personal journey through their own ages. I'm reaching an age now where I'm starting to think like, actually, maybe I should have been putting some money away for retirement, or your time preferences just change, don't they?
Yeah.
And I think as your business time preferences change, you get a bit established, and yes, you have highs and lows, and you have fear of missing out from the ones on the market, but ultimately you want stability long term, rather than just a little prop up this month.
So going back to your story,
Yeah.
I was intrigued by what you said with you kind of fell into a crowd of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean? And do they all get together in a group, or talk to us about what that actually looked and felt like, and then what you got from it?
Yeah, I think I didn't realise that I actually liked learning stuff, because I did nothing at school, and I always found it frustrating at school that I wasn't really naughty at school. I would just ask questions that the teachers didn't have time for. Like, why are you teaching me how to work out the circumference of a cone? I don't know what I'm going to use this for. And they'd be like, just get on with it. Yeah. And I couldn't handle it. So I'd just be like, no.
I can see that.
Yeah. Not unless you're going to explain
Actually, you've got your old teacher coming in.
I'm sure, right? Yeah. So I wasn't naughty. I just couldn't get my head around it. It was much to my sort of parents' frustration, because they were the same. They were like, just get on with it. You can pass all these. Why are you just messing around? You're going to ruin your life. And I was like, I'll figure it out. And then when I went into a estate agency, was the first time, like I say, that I realised there's something that's really interesting me here. How am I selling this guy this house for 30 grand and then selling it for him again for 60 3 months later?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to learn my financial services qualification, so I did. And then when I had my business, again, I was just trundling along with it, using any sales techniques that I'd learned along the way. I wasn't really aware of the world of self-development, if I'm honest. And, it was different back then. Not really YouTube or podcasts or anything like that. And like I say, I put my kid into this school that I couldn't really afford at the time. Wasn't a mental school. It was just a nice little private school, and he was in class with these obviously other children, and one of the parents that we got friends with, she had this background of building this incredible fashion business, and got chatting to her just generally about business, and we would talk about things, and she would say, oh, like I read this book. I think one of the first books I read was like the E-Myth, something like that. And I read that and thought like, wow, that's really interesting. My company doesn't run like that. And then I met another guy from school who had he was like the world's leading expert in the motion of the human foot or something like that. And he travelled all over the world doing these things. And then they knew each other, and they'd both like spent time at this private members club. And I thought, I need to kind of figure what's going on here.
Yeah.
Because like, I'm just like playing Power League on a Thursday night, and they seem to be meeting up in some secret place. So I sort of said, oh yeah, I might come along to that. And I went along there, and I met another person who started a company called Coffee Nation that he'd sold for like, 50 million quid or whatever it was. And just general conversations that kind of lead you on a path towards, some of them were meeting up with other entrepreneurs in specific events. Some of them were going on courses. Some of them were sharing what books they'd read. But all of the stories were very, very similar. It didn't seem to matter what place they were in. So it was just, I'd suddenly found this kind of home, if you like, whereby like, I do like learning stuff. I just don't like learning about how to work out the circumference of a cone, So that's what it looked like for me, and moving the type of people that I hung around with, like seeking them out. I didn't know to seek them out, but I found them by accident, and then I started seeking them out.
Yeah. But it wasn't like a formal group, or wasn't structured. It was more they'd get together for a drink and chat about business. And
I did do some workshops and courses that other people were going on and stuff. But to start with, it was more sort of, this person knows this person, and I have a chat with them, and then some of them I said, oh, can I do some work with you one-to-one, and that sort of thing.
And you were saying earlier that it what it taught you about going up through the gears of business. So what kind of things did you learn from them? What was some of the things you thought, oh my God, how did I not know that until I've been around these people?
It sounds so weird, but having a vision and a mission and a 5-year goal, 3-year goal. So for instance, like, where will the company be in 5 years? And it's a bit out there. You can't really be that accurate about it, but you could have an idea. And most people probably have. If you ask them, they'd spill out an idea to you. But there's nothing actually going on in the company to make it a reality, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So going from there and actually documenting it, and then finding out that like either it's like ridiculously out of touch with reality, or getting it where you think that seems quite realistic, and then rewinding down and going, so what would the company have to look like in 3 years? It'd probably have to look like this. Okay, so what would the company have to look like in 12 months to be on track for that? Well, it'd probably have to look like this. Awesome. So what we're going to do in the next 3 months that's going to keep us on track, and going down like that. And suddenly you've got this laser focus whereby all these distractions just kind of fall away, because you get them all the time, don't you? Conversations about, wouldn't it be great if we did this? Wouldn't it be great if we did that? And everything's great. So you take it all on. But when you've got that laser focus, someone goes, wouldn't it be great if you do this? And you stop and you think, it's not actually on our roadmap for getting to the 1-year goal. So yes, that is a brilliant idea, but I'm not interested.
Yeah.
Because I know that if I do these things, I'll make it to the 1-year goal.
Yeah.
And then I'll make it to the 3, and then I'll make it to the 5, and then I have nothing to worry about for the rest of my life. So whilst that's a brilliant idea, it's, we're going to stay laser focused on this, and just how to hire staff, how you get a great team working for you, how all of these things, they've already been solved. I was trying to figure it all out, and I had business partners at the time, and we'd just sit in a room and argue for the day trying to figure it out on our own. But actually, people have already figured it out.
Yeah.
You just find them, and they'll tell you how to do it, and then it's like, oh yeah, it's simple.
Yeah. And sort of a bit of a plug, I suppose. But is this related back to your course that you do for is it the accelerator course?
Yeah, so 2024 we started the first year intake of that, which has just come to an end. We'll start the new one in 2025. The course came about because obviously we're a software business, and so we don't have there's no reason for us to be getting involved in the type of things that we're talking about. But I personally end up talking to a lot of our clients, and a lot of the problems that they go through are problems that I can relate to from previous businesses that I had, and I know how I solved it and what the solution was, and I sort of tell them, and they go, "That's brilliant, that's really good advice," but then nothing really gets implemented because it's just a chat on a phone, isn't it? Like, it's not really life-changing. And so I sort of thought to myself, actually, you know what? Maybe I can bring some of the people that I learned from, and maybe I can also do some of the sessions, and we can just bring in people that these people probably otherwise wouldn't have access to, because they charge too much money or they're difficult to get hold of, and put together a 12-month program around the intrinsic basics of, like, this is how you're going to run a business that works like a machine. Some stuff that you just don't know, and an expert's going to tell you how it works, so there'll be no argument in your company about it, because you can bring a few people like from the leadership team. The expert will tell you how it works. You'll do a workshop around it. It won't solve the problem there and then, but it will solve the problem of not knowing how it works.
Yeah.
And then you'll have the infrastructure to go, great, that's how core values work, that's how vision works, that's how mission works, this is how our goals work, this is how our 90-day meeting works, this is how brand works. Mike, who comes and does brand that you've met before, like, was the CEO of the Bank of New York Financial, like, you're not going to just get these people in the office to have a chat with them. They'll tell you how it works. Yeah. Marianne, who's 27 years building systems at McDonald's, like, they'll show you how customer journeys work. Otherwise, you'll just spend forever figuring it out. Because the expert didn't tell you, someone will always go, I don't think it works like that. So that's why we put that course together.
What's nice is that these people are all from outside of industry as well. Like you said, you've got McDonald's, Bank of New York, and then you have the coffee, fashion, the foot mobility. From what they've said to then our industry, are there common things in the estate agency industry that agents are getting wrong from that? I suppose it's quite a strategic viewpoint that you have these conversations. Are there things that keep coming up more often for us than they should?
Yeah, definitely. Most of the agents I meet are in the same boat that I was in. They were an estate agent, they loved estate agency, and then they opened an estate agency themselves. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. But they're now doing what I was doing, which is like, so now we just need to sell some houses. I and they had never been told how to build a business. So it's just, they can do the estate agency bit. They don't really need training on that. I mean, like, not that I could train them even if I wanted to, because, like, Matt, whoever, they've got far more experience of being an estate agent than I have. But there are fundamentals in every business, like, how do you pitch? Like, not how do you value someone's house? How do you pitch? How do you show value in your company? I don't know. We just tell them what we do. And it doesn't work like that. Like, how do you recruit? Oh, I don't know. We look at people's CVs, have a chat with them, give them a trial. No, it doesn't work like that. All of these things are fundamentals in every business. And once you get them, then you can translate it into, like, whether it works in your estate agency or your coffee shop or your software business or your, podcasting business or whatever it is. It's the same in all of these companies.
Yeah. So okay, that's really interesting. Coming back to the journey that you're on then, and with Iceberg Digital as a business, because it's also expanded into, it's mostly within technology, apart from, I suppose, the accelerator courses, not so much. And I think that you've always been quite close to the cutting edge of what technology is doing. Like, I remember, was it a couple of years ago when ChatGPT came out? And I remember I probably saw it through something that you put online first. I think you did it might have even been like a WhatsApp video or something like that of it writing a property description or what have you. Yeah. But, and we'll come on to that subject in a minute, but what do you think, and especially, or maybe more so for the premium market, where do you think that technology is going? What are the things that agents should be thinking about? And also, like, what's a red herring? Like, everyone talks about AI. Is AI gonna take everyone's jobs? All that sort of stuff. I saw I went to a conference last week and I saw a video of, it was absolutely bizarre. It was someone making a phone call to an AI telephone operative asking about properties, and it was dreadful. It was just the stupidest thing I've ever seen. I don't know who it was for, because there was a bad experience for the customer. It was a bad experience with the seller, because you wouldn't have wanted your house sold that way. I don't think the AI is having any fun along the way with it. And that just seemed like, well, that's a bit of a red herring.
Yeah.
How much of it is real, a threat? How much of it is an opportunity? Where is technology going? What does that landscape look like for, I guess, us as laymen looking around trying to figure out what technology is going to do and where we should be focused?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it is getting very complicated for agents, in the sense that it's such a buzzword, AI, and there's a big confusion between ChatGPT and AI. And I think I see lots and lots of people that have no credibility or expertise in the area whatsoever, advising.
Suddenly become a guru.
Yeah. Advising people on the future of AI.
Yeah.
Or offering a software that does AI.
Wow.
But really, they just found a hack in ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And
I remember you said something on that, and it made me laugh at the time. So most of the AI products that you find is like the Scooby-Doo villain, where you pull the mask off.
Yeah.
It's just ChatGPT underneath.
Yeah. and I guess a lot of things are like that, because, you know, ChatGPT is made by a company called OpenAI, and most people know. Like, we got beta early access to OpenAI in 2018, where we could start using it. And what they've done, and other companies, it's not just them, they've built the large language learning model in the background, and you pass your data to it and you can make your own tools. That's all great. But I think the trouble in a state agency now is that you can't see the wood for the trees. You know, there's so many, this is great products, like, you know, this person's got this amazing system that will do this, and this, and like, because I am in technology and have been around this for over a decade or more, this not going to work. Like, it's not going to do anything particularly great for you. And in 6 months, like, people will be able to do that. Like, your 15-year-old would be able to do a better version than that on their phone. The example you looked at in the at the event, I didn't see it, but I can imagine it. It's a tough one, because they're showing you where it's going. Clearly, no one's going to want to have a chat with a robot on the phone. But if you think about the world before ChatGPT and how much of a step forward we've taken, it's not that hard to remember. Like, if someone had described it to you, you'd just been like, no, it's not going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And here you are, like 2 years later, with it doing all sorts of crazy stuff. It's not hard to imagine how that phone call is going to go. It's not very difficult at all. It only needs to be faster at responding and have better data served to it, and have a more human sounding voice, or clearly be a robot.
Yeah.
I don't mind talking to a robot if it's not annoying.
Yeah.
You know, if it's going to get me what I want in a fast amount of time. I'd rather talk to a BT robot than sit on hold for 7.5 hours. Do you know what I mean? If it gets me what I want.
Yeah.
What I don't want to do is talk to a robot that doesn't understand me, and then I have to wait for a person anyway.
Yeah.
So where's it? Red herrings, tons of them at the moment, just endless. Like, why? AI works based on data. This is complicated to explain. Where you have, agents love the idea of connecting things up to their software. You know, it's brilliant, this person's got this tool and I can connect it up, and this one's got this one and I can connect it up, and I can even develop some stuff myself. And none of that's great for AI, because AI works based on one central piece of information. You know, so, and you might go, yeah, but it feeds in the information. I know, but there's still going to be some information left somewhere. Otherwise it would just be the same software.
Yeah.
I wouldn't need to plug in, would I, if it was already in there?
Yeah.
So, and eventually that will accelerate to the point whereby, like, you've got all this mess going on, and it will turn into a mess, because I've been there myself, and the AI is not now able to keep up with someone who did it the other way. Obviously, I'm biased on all of that. You know, I've got a software company, like, you know, so I know why I'm building my stuff my way, and I look across and think, I don't know why you're building it that way, but I guess they must feel the same thing. So I'm clearly biased on it. Where does it go in the future? I mean, I've said it to both of you before. Like ultimately, like it's the end of the human race, I suppose. But on the way,
on the way to annihilation.
On the way, you don't have much choice but to use it to your advantage, really.
It's gone far too far now, isn't it? That's the the thing.
You know, it wouldn't matter what rules were brought in now.
No, that's it.
Pandora's out the box. So how do you use it to your advantage then? I mean, for AI, but then technology going forward as well.
Okay.
I'm sort of being selfish here because I do think that you are a little bit further down the track than most of us.
So give me an example of, I don't know, a problem in an estate agency.
Well, I think you've mentioned recruitment earlier. I think most people that are running an estate agency, not self-employed as such, would say attracting the best candidates and retaining them and helping them to progress through their organisations is a challenge.
Okay, I mean, it's a tricky one with AI, that one, because like I believe that recruitment is based around core values.
Yeah.
So first of all, I'd have to explain that, to explain why I would get the AI to do what it wanted, what I wanted it to do. But let's just think about it from a general point of view.
Okay, so listings, winning more listings.
Winning more listings.
Yeah.
I want more listings.
Yeah.
Okay, so if the AI had access to the right data, this is what we're basing it on, right? So if it had access to the births in the local area, the intake of schools data. I know you might go, well, this is all data protection, but I'm just giving you an example.
Yeah.
If it had access to that, if it had access to house prices, had access to your personal gigs and code data about what houses you sold, had access to your database of buyers, because in your system they're very specific about what they're looking for. I could go to number 26 High Street, knowing that they've just had a kid and it's only a 2-bed and they've already got one kid and they're going to need to move. I'd know that. I'd know why they should list with us, because it scanned through all of my database and found who would buy it, and it would give me evidence of all of the other things that we'd sold nearby. So there are things that you could do as a human, right? As a human, I could probably muster that together. But with AI, I could just literally chuck the data in, sit there, press a button, and it would go, speak to these 7 people about these 7 things, and you're going to get the listings. Like, that's pretty mental. Now, if you throw on top of that the conversation bit that isn't working at the moment, I don't even need someone to have the conversation. Like, AI doesn't get sick of making phone calls, doesn't get sick of sending email messages or sending LinkedIn messages.
Like, just get sick.
Just doesn't get sick. If I also tell AI what your core values are, what your company is, and what's so special about you, it knows that too. I just built one for one of our clients, and he's just blowing his brains.
Built a what?
Built an AI for him that knows everything about his company.
Right.
And you can ask it anything. You can ask it to write you content. You can ask it like why someone should work for you. You can ask it like why this person should list with you. You can ask it why it's a bad idea to put your house on Rightmove first. You can ask it whatever you want.
So what's that client doing with that AI?
Well, I only showed it to him yesterday, and he's still recovering.
Yeah, I bet.
But he's like, this is just unreal. He's going to set up a whole department.
So where's AI going to benefit the majority of the people listening to this? In their mind, apart from shortcutting stuff like that, and there's no doubt that's going to really help. How do you see it really?
How does it help?
Help the agent?
It cuts out stuff that you as a human can't comprehend.
Yeah.
I could give you a list of all the people that visited your website.
Yeah.
In fact, I probably do somewhere in the software.
Yeah.
But it's too much.
Too much information.
You can't see the wood for the trees.
And we're already overloaded, overwhelmed.
And I want to know everyone that visited my website. I want to know where to get the next listing.
Yeah.
AI will do that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to read through every review on Amazon to see if it's a good product. AI will do it for me. You know.
So do you see that? Like we talked about the estate agencies, like we said about recruitment and all of that kind of stuff. Do you just see that great agents will be will have the greatest AI by their side,
Yeah.
and they will have very much less people around them.
Well, it depends
And
on
they'll
what
be
you call a great.
highlighting their
Depends on what you
strengths.
call a great agent, because at the moment you can still get away with it doing estate agency on pen and paper. You could still be a great agent using pen and paper in today's world.
But further down the line.
And so first up, if we're just talking about AI and the effects of AI, first up you need all the data.
Yeah.
So the guy that I was mentioned that I just trained this AI for has 10 branches and has vast amounts of data. No one can keep up with him in his area. It's not possible because he's got the volume and he's got the systems. And so even though the people in his local area don't realise it yet, they can't catch him. It's impossible with what's going to come.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be the biggest agent right now. Right now, you just have to be aware that you're supposed to be working with somebody that is going to help you take advantage of this and showing you how you're going to collect the data, putting it in the right kind of places and that sort of stuff, and then it's going to kick in.
Do you think there's a moral dilemma for people with AI and they're thinking they're contributing towards the end of the world?
Yeah, definitely. I think about it quite a lot. I do. I think I do feel like there is a shift in the world whereby people are now more conscious of maybe some of the impacts that having smartphones has had on the world. It's taken, only come out in 2007. High-speed internet's only a decade old, and it's only now that we're seeing the effects on kids that are teenagers, like what that did to them, that we can start to go, you know what, maybe this wasn't such a great idea.
It's like Australia's just banned social media for under 16-year-olds.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So and I've got a 16-year-old myself and a 14-year-old, and I can see for myself like some of the mistakes that I've made in that period of time. So I do think the world is going to come away from that, but the dilemma is again time preference, isn't it? Like, what a weird question to ask yourself. Do you want to save your livelihood and your business, or do you want to save the world? It's a tough one.
There's the thumbnail.
Right? And people can go, oh, don't be so silly. I'm only getting it to write blogs for me. And I get it, but we all saw, well, most of us will have seen Elon Musk marching out his robot army.
Yeah.
And I was driving along the M25 thinking, all these roadworks. It's not hard to imagine these robots doing these roadworks, right?
Yeah.
And it's also not hard to imagine that the road workers that got made redundant not being happy about that and attacking the robots. And it's also not very hard for to imagine Elon Musk thinking we should put something in to make the robots protect themselves.
Yeah.
And boom, suddenly we're in a
We've
war with a robot.
We've just entered Mark's mind, haven't we?
I mean, it all sounds so ridiculous, but equally it's
also not
happening.
But if you look at where we are now, 20 years ago, you wouldn't, or 10 years ago, like you said, it wouldn't have been.
Yeah. So estate agency, every industry is, no one knows where it's going. But taking it back to a basic level, if I can give you some technology that will, tell you where to get your next 7 listings, why would you not want to use that?
Yeah.
You could say, well, because I think it will contribute towards the end of the world, and you're probably right, but do you want to know where the next 7 listings are?
Well, we said moral dilemma, and then we were talking about estate agents.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But no, I think where you're at with it is really a time preference is a nice way of kind of explaining the decision-making process, because there's a lot of decisions for people to make, and I do feel at the minute it's only going to help if you use it in effectively to do what you've just described, which is it's overwhelming enough. I mean, one of the things I would say to you is all year estate agents say they haven't got time to do shit. It gets to Christmas, they say it's quiet, and you say, are you doing that shit that you weren't able to do all year? And they go, no. And you go, well, so everyone's just a lot of people do just sit there and they just feel overloaded. Then you look at their screen time, it's 7-8 hours.
Yeah.
And you go, what could you do with that time? Well, there's a list of people, or there's a bit of background info on these people, why don't you just have a chat with them?
Yeah.
It's that is so estate agency, the human side of it, the EI side, which I know we've talked about before. Emotional intelligent agents understand people. They understand in a conversation when to drop the right question, to nod, to listen, to show empathy, to probe, to challenge, to, you know, disturb the conversation. So getting those people into more of those situations is only going to help people to progress their personal brand, their reputation, their success rate, their conversion rate. I wrote the other day, I went into Chat GPT and I thought, how to help a seller see that an offer's the right offer or whatever it was, and it gives you all of these things. And then that was a real general starting point. And then you can go into more detail about X, Y, and Z. And you just think, well, you know, for a lot of people new to the industry, but they've got exceptional communication skills and EI, imagine how quickly you can develop people to come into the industry with stronger skills, stronger communication skills.
The jobs inside the
so
agency,
so
like,
forth.
you know, people are used to having a CRM that they can pull reports out of.
Yeah.
But why are you pulling the report out?
Absolutely.
And I pull it out because then we sit and we analyse this, and this. Why? Because I want to know this. Fine. So now I can just say to AI, I want to know this. It's already got the data.
You've got all the data. Someone said to us the other day about reports and said, what are you going to use them for?
Yeah.
And they really struggled to give me any good reason. It's like having meetings, isn't it? I mean, you know, you could probably go to AI and ask, we're going to go and talk about this, and you saved yourself an hour and a half.
Yeah.
You know.
Like we was looking at one the other day, like a little tweaking to our AI is called Uzair, and like tweak to Uzair, just get it to do the morning meeting. Like, you know, I spoke to about 5 agents and I said, what do you talk about in your morning meeting? They told me. I was like, there you go, it does it for you now.
What cracks me up is your face. Like, I can imagine Mark coming in for the morning meeting. Yeah. Can you?
But like not to do it for you, but like just to prepare you.
Yeah,
like you turn up and here's the information. To ask them about this.
We're so used to, aren't we, we're reactive. So the change of perspective and mindset is to think, how can I be more responsive? How can I be more prepared or whatever? And actually, you know, going out to a house if I come out to see, you know, you and your wife, what you can gather in the space of minutes and is more than we would go and gather for an hour and a half, getting prepared for evaluation. Right. I've got to go right move list, got to get the premium guide or blah, 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 blah. And a load of old shit, let's be honest, that you could go into AI and go, actually, I'm going to sell this house. What's the marketing plan? Yeah. It gives you a load of stuff that nobody else is going to talk about while you're out there in the field. And then you've got your humanistic ability to be undistracted, uncomparable to the competition. Yeah, and you just think, there's really, this is where I see it going.
Doing that heavy lifting.
Totally. Well, if you look at videography, right, how many, in the nicest possible way, I know we had Matt Strafford on a little while ago, really good guy, but a lot of agents' iPhones can take a lot of the heavy lifting in videography, right? And if you look at photography as well, there's such quality in technology today. What's it going to be like in 3 years' time? So when you're writing your business up 5 years, 3 years from now, you'd be really surprised where it might end up.
Yeah, it's supposed to cause deflation. You know, technology is supposed to cause deflation. Really, you know, the iPhone does that and AI does that. Come to the
explain that to the people listening, because I've heard you say this before, and it's a pretty cool.
I don't think I have, so I'm interested.
Yeah.
So, you know, a lot of people. Let's look at it from the. I mean, you can go way back in time, but you know, let's look at the. In fact, let's go back. Like at some point in time, to get around, you needed horses, and in comparison to what the average person earned at the time, like not many people could have a horse and a carriage and all of that sort of thing. And then eventually cars came, and cars were extremely expensive. Even less people could afford those. But as the technology improved, the price of the cars came down relative to earnings, and now people could get transport. There was a point whereby like going abroad on holiday was like impossible. It was for the super rich. And now, like, you know, technology has allowed us to get to the stage where you can jump on a flight pretty much anywhere. Like when the iPhone came along, you know, people were selling mobile phones for 99 quid. The iPhone was 500, but it's caused deflation. Like you were never in a position whereby you could send a message to someone on the other side of the world for nothing. Like that's not something that anyone was ever able to do before the iPhone. Or you know, you even with a normal mobile phone, like I can remember, you wouldn't text somebody. It was like, you know, 50p a text or
That's
something
why you
like
had the
that.
stupid language, wasn't
Right,
it? Like,
exactly, yeah. So video, like you said, you know, the type of course, we've got professional cameras in here, and the iPhone isn't as good as those, but it's as good as what Hollywood were using, you know, 20 years ago, or even less than that probably. So technology causes deflation, and that's what your software should do. So although there might be a headline price for it, you know, life cycles, you know, I don't know, 1,300 quid or something like that every month. That's a pretty hefty headline price. It actually causes deflation in your business because otherwise you're going to need people. And if you've ever tried to save money in your business, you'll realise the only place that you can do it is in the wage bill.
Yeah,
everywhere else is just a bit of a...
But
odds and sods comparatively,
Inflation's quite, you know, everyone's a lot more aware of it now because in recent years it went up so rapidly and it's come down at a fairly good rate of knots in the end. But so deflation is it's helping people to understand what that actually means, which I think your explanation it actually does. But it's how do you inflate your time and your strengths in your business to do the things that you're good at? I see a lot of self-employed people trying to do so many things across the journey that they become overwhelmed and impossible, and then they can't leverage.
Well, they've got a software that maybe has helped them in deflation in some areas, but not in others.
Yeah.
So that's the critical part for me. Would be like, you know, we just spoke about, can we get AI to identify the listings and then tell us how to get them? Like, the new low version of Lifecycle will do that.
Yeah.
Like we're not even far away from it. Like, you know, Lifecycle 5 will do that sort of stuff. So if you've got a software whereby you're putting in your information, that's causing you deflation in the sense that, like, oh, it's a bit easier to confirm viewings and it's a bit easier to do this and it's a bit easier to do that. But if you're a self-employed agent, usually you're working on your own. Once you get a bit busy, then suddenly you can't do the other bit.
That's it.
And
that's the vicious cycle.
You have to hire somebody, but I can't hire somebody.
And then you can't train them.
And I can't train them. And technology is supposed to have solved that for you by now. Like,
well, I think
so that you can just do it's not taking away your job.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you imagine, like, you're running a company that when I was an agent in the 90s, and even for a lot of agencies now, would have required 6 people.
Yeah.
But there's probably you and a PA, like a remote PA, and your technology. And it's not that you, oh, great, now it would just be cheap. No. It's still super valuable to people. In fact, it could be even more valuable to people. You're still piecing it all together. You know, like my father-in-law often complains when you go to a restaurant and he's like, you know, it's crazy that they're charging this much for the wine and this much. I could get that bottle of wine in Tesco's. And I'm like, but you're not in Tesco's. They've made a restaurant.
When I hear
they've made a restaurant and they've made it comfortable and they have staff and you've decided you want to spend some time here. So what they're saying is, we bought it for £25 from Tesco's, and for all the other stuff that we're doing, we're adding on another £25. Like, what's hard to understand about that? Otherwise, just drink it at home. Oh, it's not the same though, is it?
Yeah.
No, it's not the same.
But
that's the bit they pay for. Like, you don't have to hide anything. You go, no, we use AI for this, we use AI for that. Or what you're charging me for? Me, my service.
Yeah. I like that. I see the future that way. I see that these certainly, where I find a lot of businesses I mentor and coach, and I'm including my own, I've got discussions with you about this as well, is that so many are so close, yet they feel so far. Yeah. So they then immediately go from employing people, running a successful business with a brand that's 10, 20, 30 years old, overheads are really high, costs are really high, rents, rates, pensions, NI, all of that compounds them into going, do you know, I'm just fucking going to give up. I'm going to go self-employed, or I'm going to create a self-employed model. Yeah, actually, when you break it all down and you think about those solutions, I'll call them, it's that I think people need to. It's almost like we all need this. Right, in the next 12 months, you're going to do this, then this here, this, and in 12 months' time, your business can look like that. And if you compare to your 5-year and 3-year goal, are you going to be closer towards getting there? Yes or no? Yes, I am. And actually, if you look at the deflation of your model and the inflation of time strengths versus what you're bloody good at doing, will you be happy with that?
And not just that. Like, I think it helps with what David was saying about what's the red herrings. Like, okay, so I know I need to do this in the next 5 years, and this in the next 3, and this in the next one. Awesome. Like, and then I get an email from, the Negotiator magazine saying like, check out this amazing new AI. I go, wow, that is amazing. And they go, right, do you want to buy it? And I go, it's not really going to make any difference to my 1-year goal or my 3-year goal. No, I don't. That's how, because otherwise you go, yeah, of course I want to buy it. I want it instead. The other guy's going to buy it.
There won't be a business owner now because you're so available and so accessible and so distractible, and everyone's overwhelmed. And there's not one out there at the minute that's probably not, like the ball in the pinball machine.
Yeah.
It's getting fired around with different offers left, right, and centre.
Yeah. Which
and actually, if you just had that one that just pings you up straight through the thing and stayed on that journey,
that was what happened. That's why we made that accelerator course. It's not, it's not really not for everyone. I mean, like but the principle of the idea is for everybody. Well, you have to step out of. We've got loads of estate agents and very few people building businesses.
Yeah, agreed.
And so it's.
But it's like people think you can't. I mean, it's my point I was trying to make. And just for full disclosure, we've signed up. I've got my wife and Amanda going to go on those courses for next year with myself, and we've done it for that very reason. And that's our why. Why are we doing it? Because in 12 months we want a different business than the one we've got today. Yeah. Actually, we want to take advantage of the experience in the room that we wouldn't be able to invite to our offices, to spend that amount of time with us. And what I've got with Melissa and Amanda is I've got 2 implementers.
Yeah.
I'm not the implementer. I run a business literally on the back foot sometimes because that's where my strengths are. I'm a fixer, I'm a problem solver, I'm a communicator. I'm not someone that goes, yeah, we're going to do that, and then I'm going to follow all the way through to the end. And I think this is where I think people shouldn't give up. And I'm saying that because I know it can look like you should at the minute, and sometimes the easiest decision is the wrong one. And actually, the thing to look at, and the bit that we spoke about a few months, well, probably 6 months ago now, was actually how far away are you from what you wanted in 3 years or a year or 5 years? You go, I'm not that far. But what are the things that are getting in the way? And you kind of break it all down and you go, do you know what? Actually, if I was to go and just convert my models completely across into another one, what would that look like? Well, there's a lot of work to be done, and a lot more work than if I just optimized the current model and actually made some sensible improvements. The big bit that I've had to do is get out of the way of my distractions in recent months to follow through on the decision of doing these things, because I know it's very easy to get the red hair. I'm tempted by all of these things because it looks like that's a really smart decision. That's going to be a really good decision. But you can't execute 100 things at once,
and you're just making decisions in silos. Of course, it is a very good decision. It is a very good piece of software. It is a very good course to go on. It is a very good, thing to do. But without any, we don't know if it got us any closer to the 1 year goal or the 5 year goal.
Here's a prime example. There's a guy that we all know. He's a really great agent, and in his particular area of the country, his increase of revenue has been down to him learning how to be a better estate agent. That's it. If you want to, we summarised it the other day. He goes, going out there, I'm doing this so much differently and that better, and that's converted, and doing the year-on-year comparison. And it's like, well, so he's done hardly any more front-end appointments, but the back end looks completely different. Yeah. There's another couple of lads who work with him in Liverpool, same thing. They're just much better at doing what they do best.
Yeah.
Then it's what's next.
Yeah.
And it's almost like there's a business journey, isn't there, that you go on, and the first part is being really good.
Yeah, we have. There's a thing on the Iceberg website that you can answer. Take 26 questions, tells you where you are on that estate agency business journey.
Yeah.
And how you get out of it and what you do next. I was kind of taught just generally in business, might be slightly different in estate agency. I'm not sure, but 13 members of staff is where it all starts going to shit.
Yeah.
And I can remember clearly the person that said to me, it even went to shit for Jesus, at 13. At 12, you can just,
you've got it under control.
Basically, I think it's I think Amazon have the same thing, don't they? Whereby a team's too big if two pizzas doesn't do the team.
Yeah.
And you don't get out the other side of the mess until you hit 40. anywhere between 12 and 40 staff, generally in business. As I say, estate agency numbers slightly different because one office is probably, 5 or 6 people maybe.
Yeah.
So, but that is a massive space of time whereby like you're going to either go out of business because you couldn't figure it out, or you're going to reverse back and go, forget this, it was better when the team was smaller, or very few are going to push all the way through that and then to get to 40 and go like, oh, God, I can see what we did wrong now.
Yeah.
So it's much easier to prepare to cross that chasm, or whatever you want to call it, knowing this isn't going to now fall apart when you try and expand the business.
I love it. And I know this seems crazy, but we're out of time. It feels like we've been talking for 5 minutes. Genuinely, that's absolute nuts. But we are pretty much out of time, I'm afraid. Yeah, thank you. And it's been true to that. I was going to say at the start, but one of the things I love about talking with you is that you never get the answer you think you're going to get when you ask you a question.
I think that's his default, isn't it? I think you sit there and you think, I know what I should say.
See, back to why my teachers didn't like me, right?
I'm going to go a completely different...
Come full circle, yeah. No, I love it. And it's been a super interesting conversation. I love the bit about technology because I've been meaning to ask you about that. And I think for anyone listening, that will be either reassuring or frightening, depending on where they are in their journey as well. But if people want to, and I'm sure they probably will, want to hear more from you on this subject, I guess there's a million places they can find you, right? What's the best place?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, me and Rob do the Estate Agency X podcast. Facebook, you can message me on Facebook. Like, I'm on all the different platforms, Instagram, TikTok, and that. But that's just to, because I try to pretend that I'm still young. But basically, you'll probably find me. You're probably most likely
dancing on TikTok.
Yeah, you're probably most likely to get a response if you message me on Facebook, I suppose, or LinkedIn, I guess. But yeah, you just if you Google Mark Burgess and put Iceberg at the end, because I think there's a singer or something called Mark Burgess, but you'll find me somewhere.
So you don't get off the hook that easy though, because we have a ridiculous closing tradition on this podcast, which is you are on Property-Pxrn, and everyone has their porn star name, which is comprised of your middle name and your first pet's name.
So mine would be Scott Bruce. I mean, it sounds quite
Bruce,
a 70s porn star.
I've got like a mustache.
Was Bruce a dog then?
It was a goldfish.
A goldfish?
It was a goldfish. And a funny story is that like my uncle bought me and my brother this goldfish, and then the next day we came down and my brother's goldfish was dead, and I was laughing at him, and then it turned out it was Bruce.
Oh. How would you know? He's just swapped the bowls around.
Who knows?
Who knows? Genius.
Awesome. Well, Mark, thank you so much for coming on. It's long overdue. That was a really
you.
interesting chat. I feel like we've done the same amount of time again quite easily. So thank you. And thank you for watching or listening to this episode of Property-Pxrn. We really appreciate it. And we'll catch you in the next episode.
See you soon.